everyone. My name is Emily MacNair. I'm the Director of the Agriculture and Food Climate Action Initiative, and I'm very pleased to be here today to talk broadly about adaptation concepts and then our programming here in British Columbia to work with the agriculture sector to adapt to climate change. In terms of the content I'm going to cover today, I'll start with just a very brief introduction to the Climate Action Initiative, a bit of background. Then I'm going to provide a definition for adaptation and adaptive capacity. Those are kind of important foundational pieces for the rest of the discussion about our programs and how we are approaching the work. Then I'll speak a bit about the two levels that we are working at through the adaptation programming, regional and farm scale programs. I'll touch very briefly on the farm level programs, and then the majority of the focus will be discussing the regional adaptation programming, starting with the broad agricultural impacts that we're seeing across a lot of the regions here in the province, and then speaking about some of the specific project work that we're doing that has come out of our regional planning. Thinking about the history of the Climate Action Initiative, the initiative has been around since 2008. It was actually founded by the BC Agriculture Council, so it started as an industry initiative. The industry was quite concerned about understanding both the mitigation and adaptation sides of climate change. For the first 2 years, it was funded by the Investment Agriculture Foundation. In 2010, this was the first sort of major milestone, was the release of the BC Agriculture Climate Change Action Plan. And again, that plan was focused both on mitigation and adaptation. But at that time, the Oversight Committee for the work determined that it really made sense to focus exclusively on adaptation. There was a lot of concern about what climate change was going to mean for the industry, and at that time there was really no work happening in the province, while there was some work and focus on the mitigation side. So from 2010 onward, the work really was adaptation focused. There were a couple of really important baseline pieces of work between 2012 and 2014, a province-wide risk and opportunity assessment, dialogue with commodities and specialists across the province to talk about shaping climate change work going forward, and also a baseline piece of work on farm practices. And from that baseline work, we were very fortunate to be able to evolve into government-funded Ministry of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada are the main partners. Government-funded programming from 2013 onward. We've just recently finished the first 5 years of government-funded programming and are transitioning into another 5 years of that funding and activity now. This slide is just intended to demonstrate how critical partnerships are to the Climate Action Initiative's work. It was from the very outset a partnership-oriented initiative. As I mentioned, it was really started by the industry, but there was always the intent to partner and work with government and with other organizations. So on the left of this slide, there are the main administrative funding and delivery partners, the government partners I've already mentioned, some administrative and industry partners, and the committees that we work with at the provincial level. And then as we transition to the right of the slide, this is really where we get into the delivery of the work on the ground. We have many project partners to do both of the programs, the regional and farm level programs. We work a lot with local governments and of course with many different kinds of industry organizations. The different levels of government, their staff and expertise are very involved at that level as well. And then we work with NGOs, research agencies and institutes, and we have some committees that support our work, in particular at the regional level. I'm now going to transition to defining adaptation and adaptive capacity. It's just sort of a useful foundational piece. Thinking about adaptation, it is the adjustment of human or natural systems in response to actual or anticipated changes in climate. And this is on both sort of sides of that equation of moderating harm or exploiting beneficial opportunities. So when we're thinking about adaptation, we're thinking about both of those sides. And the other two definitions are, they're interesting, the ability to spring back into shape and elasticity, capacity to recover from difficulties and toughness. I think that one of the things about adaptation is it's not necessarily going to be returning to the same business as usual. So springing back into shape, it may also be about transforming or transitioning into something new in order to be able to adapt to the conditions that we are expecting. So thinking about how we are going to adapt, this is where adaptive capacity becomes very important. So this is the presence of necessary resources and the ability to mobilize those resources to respond to challenging conditions. So those resources can be at a lot of different levels, and I'll show a graphic in a moment which we developed in our early work with the risk and opportunity assessment, which really demonstrates how that looks for agriculture specifically. And the second element of this is also thinking about the fact that this needs to be an ongoing situation, so that there needs to be the ability to reorganize for ongoing learning so that we can keep responding and adjusting over time. So this slide, as I said, was developed. It's in our risk and opportunity assessment, which was completed in 2012. And really at that time, we started thinking in a really practical and applied way about what the industry, agriculture industry, was going to require to adapt. So this really shows the whole spectrum of types of resources that we identified at that time would be necessary for agriculture to adapt to climate change. As you can see from the graphic, a whole big range of everything from the policy and regulatory side to the knowledge resources to things like physical infrastructure, that's things related to water, to farm management, and then financial resources. So we know that all of these pieces are going to be very important for the sector to be able to adapt. And they also are interrelated, so they inform and affect one another. And if one piece of that isn't supporting adaptation, it can really affect the industry's ability to adapt.